tell our American audience, what is Ola, and maybe give us a comparison as to what Ola is to something here in the United States.
Sure. So Ola is the way people get around Indian cities now. It's a mobile app which you can use to call transportation. You can call a cab, you can call an auto rickshaw also. And auto rickshaws are these three-wheeler open-air vehicles which ply Indian roads, and you can call all of that from the app in like 3-4 minutes, and you can pay through the app itself. So it's the largest platform of its type in India. In many ways, it's similar to Uber, but it's much more local. And Ola in India is larger than Uber is in the US.
So give us some perspective. When you say larger than Uber in the US, what does that actually mean in terms of quantity?
Sure. So we have more than 100,000 drivers on the platform. We do a few 100,000 rides a day, and we're growing roughly 40% a month. So it's we're in close to 90 cities in India. Right, so India is a very vast country, right, and huge population. And Ola is pretty much there in almost all Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3 cities, and we're expanding that.
Where did this concept come from? Obviously, if you've never been to India, it's hard to get around to begin with. But if even living in India, there are challenges. Maybe talk about why you decided to address this.
Sure. India, very few people own cars. Just 5% of the population owns cars. In the US, 70% people own cars. And Indian roads are already screwed up with just 5% of us owning cars. And India can never get to a paradigm where the majority of the population will own cars. So that's the opportunity for us, and that's the only solution for mobility in India. You know, you need to build this transportation as a service model, and that's why we are growing so fast. People are using us more often. People are not buying cars, and anyways, there was no place to buy those cars on. Yeah.
And so, as you launched this company, almost immediately you saw it take off.
Yeah, almost immediately. I launched it 4 years ago, and the growth has been very encouraging and aggressive.
Tell me about your model, how you're able to put this together. Obviously, it's very labor intensive. There are all kinds of issues. Obviously, Uber's run into some legal issues in India. Tell me about how you guys have been able to manage all this.
Sure. So we don't hire drivers or buy cars. We work with the drivers who want to become entrepreneurs, who want to own the cars. We enable them to buy cars through better finance deals, through better car discounts from manufacturers, etc. And so I think on the regulatory side, we've been engaging with the government very closely in the center and the state also. Being a local company, we're able to do that much better. Yeah.
And in terms of your funding, how are you able to put this together?
We've raised 5 rounds of venture capital so far. The last one being a $210 million round from SoftBank. Yeah, so there's been significant interest from investors given that the growth has been very aggressive.
And where do you project this company to be? I mean, obviously, if you're saying you're already bigger than Uber in the United States, most people can't even fathom that, given Uber is valued at, I think, 40 billion plus. Yeah. What kind of valuation are you looking at today, and where do you think this company's going?
We've seen tremendous growth. I don't share the valuation publicly, but it's been growing very aggressively. And I think the opportunity in India is much more deeper than in the US. Like I said, India has no car ownership paradigm. India has no taxi industry. But there's a lot of there's bad infrastructure, and there is heavy population density. And those two married together means a very large opportunity for a company like ours.
And when people call you the Uber of India, do you get insulted? Do you feel as if you were there first? I mean, give me your perspective.
No, I don't care. It's only the Americans who think like that. The Indians realize, the consumers realize it's a very different business. Yeah.
And in terms of competition, obviously Uber has entered into India, and I'm sure there'll be other folks on the way. How do you stem off the competitors?
So we recently acquired our number 2 player, Taxi for Sure. So we put together have close to 85% market share. Uber is very small in India. Uber's been around for 2 years. When Uber came around, Ola was not very big, and we had less than $1 million in the bank. And we've really executed well since then. Uber, they don't really localize their product as well, and they're a very small player. Till they choose to address the market directly, they will be a small player. Yeah.
Where do you see your company going over the next 5 years?
I think over the next 5 years, as more and more internet penetration happens in India, more and more mobile penetration happens in India, we're going to ride the coattails of that penetration, right? And that's a huge opportunity for us. In the next 2 or 3 years, we could be serving close to 100 million customers in India.
Any plans to come to the United States?
No, India is a very deep country.